Y vamos con nuestra siguiente conferencia, con un keynote increíble que a mí me encanta, pero antes de eso recuerden que terminando esta conferencia que viene, ustedes, sus preguntas van a ser parte de IBF 2017. Les pido que entren a slido.com, slido.com, ahí está en nuestras pantallas. Accedan ahí, les va a pedir un código, el código es el hashtag IBF 2017, para que ustedes hagan sus preguntas y también voten. Voten por las mejores preguntas, las que tengan más votaciones, las que tengan más likes, si le quieren llamar así en términos de Facebook, son las que justamente vamos a hacerle a el speaker que vamos a tener en un momento. Y justamente para que empecemos ya con este siguiente keynote, transferencia tecnológica. ¿Qué es la transferencia tecnológica? ¿Cómo hacemos que una patente, que una idea, que una tecnología pase a una empresa, pase a alguien más en un ánimo de cooperación y de esta manera crezcan, de esta manera sigan innovando? Eso, la transferencia tecnológica, créanme que es algo impresionante y en Alemania lo han hecho muy, pero muy bien. Por eso quiero invitar a nuestro primer speaker, hablando de innovación, a Jan-Erik Bandera. Jan-Erik, pasa por favor. Jan-Erik es el director del Centro de Transferencia Tecnológica de la Fundación Steinweiss en Alemania. Gracias, Jan-Erik. Thank you very much, Jan-Erik, for being here. Vamos a tener esta conferencia en inglés. Por favor, van a tener ustedes su traducción simultánea y los dejo para que nos demos cuenta de cómo podemos innovar con algo de esta transferencia tecnológica y nos convirtamos en algo que hoy queremos hacer, que nos atrevemos a innovar. Jan, es tuyo el escenario. Thank you very much for being here.
Does it work? Okay. Buenos días a todos. Ladies and gentlemen, I am sure that you have experienced the following situation in your country. You have experienced a situation that researchers at universities have good ideas, interesting research results, but alas, they don't find anybody in industry who is interested to commercialize it. On the other hand side, I'm sure you have experienced situations in companies where companies have problems. They don't know whom to address, who are the experts able to help them. Some companies are shy or reluctant to contact professors at the universities. Or in other situations, companies are more addressed to manufacture, but they have good ideas, and they don't know how to realize the ideas because they don't have infrastructure for research and development. Or other situations, the companies are just not able to cope with the fast development in technology and on global markets. So these are all typical problems that we are going to address in this presentation today. So we are not going to talk about innovation methodology. We are more concentrating on the innovation ecosystem in the country. And at this point, I would like to thank Coparmex for inviting us for this presentation today. I think it's a very great honor to have this possibility to introduce the topic of technology transfer with you in this important Congress of Innovation Business Forum. And I also thank BDI, who works together with Coparmex in a project. Can you please lower the light? I think it's very aggressive, this light. Okay, so thank you. I continue with the presentation saying that I'm going to present you some experiences from Germany and particularly from the state of Baden-Württemberg in the southwest corner of Germany. This area used to be extremely poor 200 years ago, and now they belong to the most innovative, most successful regions in the European Union. So something must have done in the right way in this area of Germany. And maybe that some experiences are inspiring for you. So I must change. And one other remark is that after the Second World War, the research was very strong in Germany. So basic research was very strong and also applied research. But what was lacking was the competitive research. In the slide, you see a diagram showing all the money spent for research and development in the whole Republic of Germany. And you see in the bottom the fundamental research, and on the left side it's research which is predominantly financed from the public side. On top you see the market-oriented research, and on the right side the research spent in the public sector by companies. So you see more or less the whole research would be spread over the diagonal of this diagram. The strong areas are covered by the basic fundamental research establishments like, for instance, the Max Planck Institute. In the middle, we see the third-party funding of the universities, but also the Fraunhofer Society, which might be known among you. On the right side, you find the research spent by the companies. So, for instance, the big companies like Daimler and Porsche, the automotive company, or Siemens. And in red, I indicate what we call the competitive research. Competitive research is the research where researchers normally are not allowed to publish because the company spends the money, so the company insists on the confidentiality. And this is the research which is really specially done, tailor-made for one industrial client. And this was considered the weakness in Germany about 40 years ago. Now, the presentation is more or less structured following the model of the triple helix. In the triple helix, we see that the major players in the society are the state on top. On the left side, we have the knowledge-creating institutions. This is universities and research. And those two are practically represent the public sector in the society. On the right bottom part, we see the private sector made out by the companies. And the state is responsible to set the frame, and in our discussion, to set the frame regarding innovation and the innovation ecosystem. The university and research institutions are responsible to teach, but also to create new knowledge in the form or in the format of a research result. And technology transfer is somehow the communication between the university sector on one side and the enterprises on the other side. So we define, or everybody defines, technology transfer as the transfer of knowledge from university to industry. We see that around this triple helix, we will talk about different aspects. One chapter will address the network structure of a technology transfer institution. We will talk about measuring the companies. We will talk about innovation management, dual education, and about funding policy. So this is more or less the content of the presentation. Now, in this slide, Steinbeis is designed in the middle between university and enterprise because the company Steinbeis in Germany is an institution responsible for technology transfer. Now, let's address, because this is the most important aspect, the philosophy of Steinbeis in looking at technology transfer in Germany. So here again you see the triple helix, the extended triple helix, showing that also at the end the society must have an advantage. So why we are talking about innovation? Not only because the companies earn more money, but at the end because it will foster the welfare in the society. We should not forget this aspect. So technology transfer is defined as a transfer of knowledge from the university to the enterprise. But this does not mean that also the initiative of every activity should come from the university. So in most of the countries, technology transfer is seen also as an activity that starts actually at the university and ends up in the company. That means that the researchers have the initiative and the task to commercialize the research results. In this, you see the institution responsible for technology transfer is called UVTC. I used the name used in your country, in Mexico, UVTC, that is the abbreviation of Unidad de Vinculación Tecnológica y Científica. I think you understand what I mean. And the research results usually are practically projected as IP. So practically the scope in many countries is to transfer IP to the companies. In other words, to license the knowledge created at university to companies. Now let's look at another way of looking at the same aspect. The so-called bottom-up approach or the pull approach starts with the needs of the companies. Companies have a problem and address the problem via the UVTCs, using your terminology, to the university. So also here, we use the knowledge of the university, but we don't use the research result. This is a big difference. We use practically, we call it the problem-solving capacity or the capability of researchers using indirectly the research results to solve the problems of the companies. And you see, I'm using the word problem. A problem is something different than IP. If a problem is solved by research at university and the result of that is an IP, then it's a wonderful situation. We call it the cream on the coffee, but it's not the normal, the usual way. Now, let's look deeper. I would like to give you an evidence of our way of looking at technology transfer. This slide shows statistical data referring only to the state of Baden-Württemberg in the southwest corner of Germany. And we are talking about a state of 11 million inhabitants as a basis for the statistics. On the left side, you see that there are something like 6,600 researchers in Baden-Württemberg. And not all these researchers work in an area that is eligible for technology transfer. Now, we create a subset of researchers and look at only at those researchers who generate research results that are interesting for technology transfer. So I'm talking about mathematics, natural science, technology, computer science. Now, they have research results, and there are international investigations who show that only 3% of the IP generated in universities have a potential of market success. Only 3%. I see that some eyes are getting wide of surprise. I myself was very surprised when I heard this figure for the first time, but this is reality. Many investigations prove this. That means it's a waste of money if a state invests very much in this top-down approach, investing much money if only 3% have a chance of a payback because the patents are successful. Now let's switch to the other side. We look at the industry side. In the state of Baden-Württemberg, there are 500,000 registered companies. Also here, not all companies are potential clients in technology transfer. So also here we create a subset, and the subset is made out of typical manufacturing companies or technology-based companies. And roughly there are 200,000 of those companies in Baden-Württemberg. Now assume that every company has one problem in a year that could be solved by university researchers. This is a very cautious assumption. But for each problem, one could create one technology transfer project. That means at the end of the year, there are 200,000 successful technology transfer projects. So now compare. The left side with 3% creates 80 successful patents in a year. And if you look on the industrial side, you have at least 200,000 successful technology transfer projects. This is 500,000 more. So the potential is much bigger on the right side. And remember, we are talking about problems, not about IP. Because if a researcher helps a company to solve a technology-based problem, the company earns more. And this is at the end what we want to achieve, not patents. We want to help the company to solve problems. So you see, this is the basis that shows why we insist so much on the pull approach and on the demand-oriented technology transfer. Now, another argument, if you look at the value chain of innovation, so basic research, applied research, competitive research, the production in the company, then we have a cost scale. Assume if you need one currency unit to generate an idea, you need 10 times more money for the applied research and even 10 times more for the competitive research ready for in order to make the product ready for mass production. Then you need 10 times more for the production and for the introduction into the market. So the value chain of innovation shows that innovation is very expensive. And if you think of the top-down approach, the idea, that means the research result, is only the beginning. And therefore, it's not surprising if many companies are reluctant to license in an idea from university because it's very costly. And this is only done if the idea has really a market demand. Okay, now let's switch to the next chapter, the network structure of Steinbeis. It's very important to have an effective tool for technology transfer, an efficient tool that establishes a communication platform between university and industry. The most important aspect to say in this respect is that researchers in Germany are allowed to have sideline activities. That means as long as the researcher works in the university, he is a civil servant. But he is allowed, or he or she are allowed to work for industry, and they do it as freelancer. So in the tax system of Germany, this is allowed. And there are clear rules that rule also the conflict of interest. This is an argument that is very frequently put against the sideline activities of researchers. There are clear rules what is allowed, and the reason, the rationale of this rule is, first of all, to offer the possibility for researchers to give consultancy to companies, but at the same time also to learn from companies and to bring in the practical experience from company back into the university. So it's a win-win situation. And the rule says clearly up to 20% of the working time may be dedicated to consultancy. And this is practically the law on which the whole Steinbeis system is hinged, that we practically offer a legal platform for the researchers to perform this consultancy work to the industry. When the professors work for industry, they are practically working under the legal frame of the Steinbeis company. They are not anymore dependent from a university. And they practically are geared to listen to the demand of industry. Now, the Steinbeis system is a quite complicated holding nowadays. I would only like to mention two important aspects. On the left side, you see a daughter of Steinbeis, which contains all the transfer centers of Steinbeis located at the universities. On the right side, in the red frame, you see the Steinbeis University. I will only mention those two because they are relevant for the presentation today. The Steinbeis University because it's based on the dual education principle, and the Steinbeis Center because they are located at universities all over Germany. Some figures, just to give you the order of magnitude: 1,064 branch offices of Steinbeis by the end of the last year, and almost 160 million euro generated in technology transfer with the company, so without any cent of governmental subsidies. And of course, many professors all over Germany under contract with Steinbeis. Now let's switch to the next chapter. We heard it's essential for the technology transfer to listen to the demand. That means we have to develop tools, quite sophisticated tools, to measure the demand of industry. And two aspects are very important in doing this. On one hand side, it's practically a system that we call active short consultancy that sends generalist consultants to the companies to measure the demand with a certain tool, then to see, identify the area of expertise to solve a problem, and then to address a specialist from the university to come to the company. This is the special consultant who will solve the problem of the company in a contract that is based in the private sector. So this tool has been financed by the government of Baden-Württemberg in the 30 years ago, and we regard it as a very small funding area, but with a very big effect because it forces technology transfer consultants really to go to the field and to systematically screen the demand of the companies in a defined region. We switch to the next, and this is the so-called enterprise check. 30 years ago, when we started, the companies were very much technology-based, but in the hardware sense, and therefore the problems that we were dealing with were quite related to technological problems that were easy to identify. Nowadays, companies are much more complex, and the human resources are the most important production factor of the company. And therefore, the original tool of active short consultancy was not sufficient anymore. So we developed a so-called enterprise check that measures competences of people, of staff of the company. And this is a sophisticated tool based on 4 competence levels: knowledge, innovation, implementation, and communication. And there are sub-dimensions, so it goes down to very many sub-dimensions and indicators. The methodology is scientifically based and then validated by hundreds of consultants of Steinbeis. So it's a scientifically based tool, but also practical in the application. The result shows, in a brief way, in a radar diagram, shows immediately the strengths and weaknesses of a company, and the text is generated automatically by a web-based application. So the whole tool is practically web-based and can be easily used by anybody, also free of charge, also here in Mexico, provided that people know English, because the tool presently is only English but will be translated later on. There is a quick check that can be easily done by a consultant, and a master check that can be done by all employees of a company in order to enlarge the basis of the data. But interesting is that results of all past evaluations flows into a database, and the database with the time gets richer and richer and creates a benchmark for future comparison. It creates a benchmark in a sector or a benchmark in a country, and it gives also a good tool for scientific evaluation. This check is used already abroad. It's becoming practically a standard and a benchmark in Germany. And why not? This is also open for other countries. So this is certainly a tool where we can also discuss whether we can use it in the project between Copamex and BDI, for instance. It's easily to transfer. Okay, let's switch to the next. Innovation management. Innovation management is the basic tool really to do innovation on the level of who is responsible for innovation. And we see it in the bottom of the slide. It's useful for researchers, it's useful for intermediaries like Steinbeis, facilitators like Steinbeis, and of course it's essential for entrepreneurs on the right side. Therefore you can imagine that we developed sophisticated training tools for innovation management. You see here just roughly the structure of the training. It's divided in phase 1, 2, and 3. Phase 1 is the real training session lasting more or less 4 days. Then comes a phase where all the participants of the training go back into the normal working environment and try immediately to apply the learnings on their daily activities. And then, after roughly 4 or 6 weeks, they come back to the training center in phase 3 in order to discuss the findings and to refine the methodology by learning the mistakes that they did and do additional learning based on their own project and case studies. The training is roughly split into the topics, into the units: initiation of ideas, the ideation phase, and the validation of ideas. This is important. You know that the problem of innovation is not only the generation of idea, but the problem of many companies is also they have too many ideas and they don't know where to concentrate. And instead of spreading the resources over many ideas, it's very important to learn how to reduce the idea to one winning horse and set all the resources of a company on one winning horse. Now, the curriculum of the innovation training is very big, so we don't go into the details. Depending on the audience, whether we are offering innovation management to researchers, to facilitators, or to companies, we have, of course, a different curriculum that is better tailor-made for the audience. A last remark to this innovation management is that we use training methods that are ideally suited for adults, and this is called experiential learning. Experiential learning means not passive listening in a training environment, but immediately applying the learnings in practical case studies and examples. Dual education. Dual education is not a new field. I heard already very much about dual education, and I also heard about impressive results that you have in Mexico in this field of dual education. So I think I can be very fast. I'll mention only that Mr. Steinbeis is the inventor of dual education. So this name is not a coincidence. It's really our program. Mr. Steinbeis, who lived 200 years ago and invented dual education some 150 years ago, he said simply, it's much easier to learn theory if you combine it immediately with practical application. It's so simple like that. So everybody would agree. But he was the one who recognized this and implemented. So practically he implemented the slogan that innovation is idea plus implementation, plus realization. The idea was good, but he created the first university based on dual education. And on this slide, you see that besides Mr. Steinbeis, there are two famous names. This is Gottlieb Daimler and Robert Bosch. The two belong to the first generation of students who attended the University of Mr. Steinbeis and practically had the profit of the dual education. And I don't need to say how successful they are. They created global companies with this dual education. But I should also mention that in these days, if you look at the statistics of unemployment among young people in the European Union, you see that exactly those states who have the lowest unemployment rate of young people, they have dual education. And this is Netherlands, Germany, Swiss, and Austria. So I don't need to say very many things. Dual education is absolutely essential to avoid unemployment in young people. So, dual education is implemented in the TVET sector, in the TVET sector, in bachelor level, and now also in master level in Germany. There is a dual state university concentrating on the bachelor level, whereas Steinbeis also created an own university based, particularly addressing the master level of dual education. And the principle is that our clients in industry have a problem. The problem requires an input of consultancy in the order of magnitude of 1 full year, person year. And the problem could be solved by internal staff, by external consultants, or the third alternative, by master students of the dual university of Steinbeis. And practically solving the problem this way means that one student has the chance to qualify, to do a practical work, to study a master, and at the same time use this time of study as experience in industry, as half-time experience in industry. They are responsible to solve the problem, and they are being coached by all the professors of the university to solve the problem. From the perspective of the company, it's also very important to mention that the company always thinks in terms of liability. And they might be reluctant to give this responsibility to a student because the student can't be made liable. But in an environment of the university is liable. Therefore, the company has the security that the problem will be solved. In the worst case, if the student is not able or gets ill, the professors would come in and solve the problem. This is the only thing which is important for the company. But of course, the student is not alone. He will always manage to solve the problem because he works in the team with the professors and gets advice from the professor. So it's a win-win situation for university, for a student, and for the company. And the student earns money because he works, and it's not a full salary, but it's a salary that covers the living expenses of the student. So also this works quite well, but you know it because you have already also dual study courses in Mexico, and I heard you have many companies. The students are paid, so you know the system. Okay, let's come to the end. By the way, I mentioned that we have many consultants who are specialized to export the dual education model to other countries, and we have done it in different countries. There are so many things to think about in the middle column, but I won't go deeper into it because the time is going to the end. So let's come to the last small chapter, the funding policy. Also, the state can do something to foster innovation by creating the right frame environment for innovation. And I mentioned only the three things that are important in my eyes. First of all, to provide a tool to measure, to assess the demand of all manufacturing companies in a defined region. This is a tool that costs little money, but has a big effect to start the process and to know the companies, to get the confidence of the companies, and to have a starting point for technology transfer project. I continue with the Innovation Award. Also, the issue of an Innovation Award is a very good tool that a state, a government can issue to create a competition among companies to make innovation sexy. Please allow me this word. To make it sexy by creating a healthy competition between the companies, because the winners will be made public, and the winners of a innovation competition will act as light towers to other companies. And this is, in my eyes, the most important effect, to act as light towers and to encourage other companies to invest in innovation. It's always an investment. But I will mention also the innovation vouchers, because they are very successful, and there are many countries in the world who look at this model of innovation vouchers coming from Baden-Württemberg. So the rules of these innovation vouchers are very simple. It's for SMEs, for PYMEs, up to 100 employees and up to 20 million euro turnover. So there is a limitation for small companies. For what? Which kind of projects? For innovation in product, in processes and service, and it's eligible for feasibility studies before the work starts and for the implementation of an idea. It's with very little money involved, actually. The ceiling is 2,500 for the voucher A, and 5,000 euro for the voucher B. A is for feasibility studies, and B is for the implementation of an idea. And the percentage of subsidy is also higher for the innovation voucher A with 80% and 50% for the voucher B. And the two vouchers may be combined. Now, what is also important, that there is a very easy online submission system. It's open call, so companies can apply at any time of the year. And the processing times are extremely short, so in the order of magnitudes of a few weeks. That means if a company has an idea, they have a need, they apply, and only a few weeks later they know if they get the money or not. Therefore, this makes it attractive for many companies to apply because it's so easy. And therefore, it's a broad measure also for micro companies. Now, you see my question at the end. What is the meaning of this logo? It's a very strange logo. And you won't understand it immediately because it refers to a German saying. The German saying, translated in English, says, to crack a nut. And this is a metaphor for solving a problem. That means, what do we see? To crack a nut easily, smoothly, with a zip instead of a hammer. It means this is the logo of the innovation voucher, an easy and smooth way for companies to solve their problems. That's the meaning of this logo. Okay, so let me say here we see there is an innovation landscape in Germany and there is an innovation landscape in Mexico with the UVTCs. What is important to improve the system and to learn from the experience in Germany or Baden-Württemberg? First of all, it's extremely important that the whole system of innovation and technology transfer is demand-driven. Second, it must be focused on entrepreneurship. All players involved must be inspired by entrepreneurship. Also, facilitators should see their job as a venture, a company with a special product. The product is called innovation assistance or technology transfer. They should act exactly according to the same rules as their clients in industry. And therefore, also they can innovate. They should know the rules of innovation and they should apply it for their own job. And they should also have incentives for success. If they are good, they should earn more than others who are not so good. And the third element is networking. It's important to have a critical mass. It's not enough to have one university, one UVTC, and a few companies around the university. You would never reach the critical mass to be successful. So the whole system must, right from the beginning, have the view of being a national system. linking all universities together and all companies together, and a network of UVTCs in between acting efficiently and creating a fast communication channel. So, I come to an end, and I hope to have provided you some inspiration, some good idea for your work, and thank you very much for your attention.
Wow, thank you very much. Increíble esta conferencia. It was incredible, your conference. Please come with me. Let's go to answer a couple of questions. Vamos a contestar un par de preguntas de las que ustedes amablemente, la verdad es que me sorprendió la participación que hemos tenido con Slido. Ha sido impresionante. There was a lot of participation of the audience in your keynote. We have a lot of questions right now about your keynote, so it's great to have all this participation of all the people that are here in the Innovation and Business Forum 2017. So, bueno, I'm going to switch right now to Spanish, and you have your translator, y ustedes también tienen su traducción simultánea, así que vamos a hacer algunas preguntas de Slido, que esa es la parte innovadora también de hacer este tipo de foros, que ustedes puedan preguntar y puedan contestar en tiempo real. ¿Cuáles fueron las más votadas y cuáles fueron las que más nos interesan? Bueno, la primera la hicieron en inglés y lo agradezco mucho. Lo hizo alguien anónimo. Ojalá nos puedan poner los nombres. Sería muy importante que compartiéramos el nombre, tal vez incluso de dónde vienen. Eso haría mucho más interactivo esto. La primera pregunta es en inglés. Which is the bigger problem in education you see in Mexico? ¿Cuál es el mayor problema en la educación que ve en México?
Okay. Can you translate again? Or
no, it's okay. Which is the bigger problem in education that you see in Mexico, that you saw in Mexico? Which is the most important problem that maybe you can see about your
experience? The problem in Mexico?
Yeah. In education, especially.
In education. Well, now you are asking me in an area where I am not expert, so that makes it difficult. I heard about your successes in dual education. So far, I have only positive examples of what Mexico had done before. I know that many other countries are working already for many years in dual education, and you have accomplished it in a very short time. So this is absolutely positive. So I see on the level that affects innovation and technology transfer, you are well prepared. Maybe that the dual education is not diffused enough in all corners of the country. So it's a problem of scaling up.
Okay. Second question, segunda pregunta. According with your experience, it will be, which is the recommendation for Mexican universities interested in tech and knowledge transfer to the industry? ¿Cuál sería su recomendación para las universidades en México que están interesadas en tecnología y en la transferencia tecnológica en la industria?
Okay. Can I ask you to say it also in English?
Is according with your experience, which will be the recommendation for Mexican universities interested in tech and knowledge transfer in the industry?
Okay. Well, my recommendation is definitely to open towards towards industry. I know this is not easy. In many countries, researchers are not used to communicating with industry, so they are also reluctant and shy to communicate with industry. So this is definitely something that should be fostered by. I know it's possible because by experience, I would say 10% of all researchers in the areas that we were talking about have the capability and the interest to do so. Therefore, we only need to facilitate the environment around them, and then it would be easier for them to dialogue with industry. And the network of UVTC, using your term, would be very helpful because people working in UVTC could be, for instance, somewhere between university and industry. They are not researchers, but they have a solid educational background in science, so they are able to communicate with researchers on eye level. And on the other side, those consultants have experience in industry. They are able to communicate with industry and are accepted by industry. So therefore, if researchers work together in a team with consultants from a UVTC, then it's no problem to be successful.
That's awesome, creo que eso es increíble. La siguiente, bueno, creo que va muy de la mano con la primera. Dice, ¿cómo romper la nuez? This next question is in Spanish, but it's kind of slang. And it says, how we can change this model in Mexico, where we can change to be more, as you say, in the Steinweiss Institute. So I think that the answer is very, very accurate.
The answer, I just recall what I said about the active short consultancy. If the government issues a funding model that forces UVTCs to screen the demand of the company, then this is the best way to start the process, to initiate the process, and to encourage both companies and researchers to work together.
Wow. Hay muchísimas preguntas. There is a lot of questions, and I think that we're going to send you by email. Maybe you can help us to answer in a blog, in something.
No problem.
We can ask you. But I want to thank you very much for your keynote. I think that it's incredible. Of course, it's innovation. Por supuesto que es innovador y nos queremos atrever a innovar. Así que muchísimas gracias. Thank you very much for being here. And quiero pedirles un aplauso para Jan-Erik Bandera, el director del Centro de Transferencia Tecnológica de la Fundación Steinweiss en Alemania. Jan-Erik, please take a moment. I want to ask you something, Jan-Erik. Jan, please, just a little minute. We want to give you a little present. Vamos a darle un pequeño regalo. This present is we're going to give this present to all our speakers, and it's a very special present. Now it's going to be Ramiro Cárdenas, who is the VP, the National VP of Coparmex. Ramiro Cárdenas, el vicepresidente nacional de Coparmex, is going to deliver you.
Thank you very much for your generosity.
Thank you. It's a great present, and I'm going to, quiero presentárselos. Es una pluma, this is a pen. Y esta pluma dice, un recuerdo del IBF para ti que tienes un gen innovador. This is a little present for you from the IBF, for you that you have an innovation gen, an innovation aid, DNA.
Okay.
So it's great to have this because creo que todos los que están aquí tenemos un gen innovador, tenemos un ADN innovador y muchísimas gracias por esto. Y una libreta, y nada más quiero mostrarla una sola vez y después vamos a tener una libreta que está en blanco. This book, it's only white pages. Because we want that you wrote all your new ideas to innovate here in blank.
Very good.
Thank you very much.
Very
Muchísimas
useful.
gracias. Una pluma y una libreta en blanco para que escriban sus ideas innovadoras todos.
Welcome,
Muchísimas gracias. Thank you very much, Jan-Erik Bandera. Muchas gracias a Jan-Erik Bandera